Moving in. Iowa legislators converging on Des Moines this weekend, convening 2012's General Assembly Monday morning. We're questioning House of Representatives leaders Republican Linda Upmeyer and Democrat Kevin McCarthy on this edition of Iowa Press.
Funding for Iowa Press was provided by Friends, the Iowa Public Television Foundation, the Iowa Gaming Association, on behalf of 18 commercial casino members who employ over 9,200 people with an annual payroll of more than $276 million and who generated nearly $1 billion for Iowa's economy in 2011.
Iowa Bankers Association. Iowa banks provide financial services to meet the needs of families, farms, and businesses. More information is available online at myiowabank.com. Iowa Banks, your future, our focus.
The Associated General Contractors of Iowa, the public's partner in building Iowa's highway, bridge, and municipal utility infrastructure. Iowa Community Foundations, an initiative of the Iowa Council of Foundations, connecting donors to the causes and communities they care about, for good, for Iowa, forever. Details at iowacommunityfoundations.org.
The Rotary Clubs of Iowa and Rotary International.
In 1985, Rotary International committed to a goal of ending polio worldwide. Very soon now, after immunizing over 2 billion children, the goal will be achieved. Rotary, humanity in motion.
For decades, Iowa Press has brought you politicians and newsmakers from across Iowa and beyond, celebrating 41 years of broadcast excellence on statewide Iowa Public Television. This is the Friday, January 6th edition of Iowa Press. Here is Dean Borg.
Iowans are enjoying a brief political respite this weekend. Presidential candidates moving on at midweek just in time for moving the spotlight to the Iowa State Capitol for reconvening Iowa's General Assembly. Governor Terry Branstad presenting his agenda in a combined condition of the state and budget address Tuesday morning. Big issues are looming, but so is November's general election. So it's likely legislators will be doing all they can to avoid extending the session into the summer, as they did last year. Well, that means either avoiding highly contentious issues or striking compromises. We're getting insight from R-Garner Republican Linda Upmeyer. She leads the Republican majority, and from Des Moines Democratic Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy. Welcome back to Iowa Press.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
And welcome back to a new session. We're going to be seeing a lot of you. And across the table, Associated Press senior political writer Mike Glover and Radio Iowa News Director Kay Henderson.
Representative Upmeyer, let's start with you. The governor has trotted out his education proposal he's going to send to the legislature this year. The key elements of that are tougher standards for those who would become teachers and more testing for students to assure they're making progress throughout their education career. Is that the direction that Republicans want to go on education?
Well, this has been a very good process. The governor started with a summit on education early on, and that was the standards for teachers was absolutely one of the things that many of the speakers talked about. So I assume there's good reason to do that, and certainly we want our students to show that they've achieved. We want our students to be prepared for any opportunities anywhere, and we need to know that they've accomplished what they need to in their education.
Representative McCarthy, the same question to you. Tougher standards for those who would become teachers, tougher testing for students as they go through the process. Without discussing details, is that the direction Democrats want to head on education?
We want to work in a bipartisan way to try to find a way to pass some things to make us more competitive. It gets very complicated on how you do it exactly.
Right.
But the governor has gone about this thus far the right way. We've had a seat at the table. Mm-hmm. And because of that, we really want to work in a bipartisan way. Again, we have to figure out that things, are they research-based? Do we have data to show that things are effective? But our intention is to try to work in a bipartisan way that would make us more competitive.
Representative Upmeyer, the governor is also putting a $25 million price tag on this package of proposals he's got. Is that spending the Republicans can live with?
Well, we'll have to look at the governor's budget and see exactly where those dollars come from and understand what resources he believes are available. Absolutely, Republicans are remain resolved that we will spend less than we take in. So if it fits inside that, then we'll be able to look at that.
Representative McCarthy, $25 million on schools. I presume that Democrats can live with that. Democrats like to spend money on schools.
Well, no, we want to be efficient. I think the proposal is allocate some existing resources of about $8 million, so the net would be about $17 million more dollars. I don't know if you could do a global reforming type proposal at $17 million with our education system, just to increase the school day, for example,
right.
By either a few hours or a day. One day would cost over $10 million, okay? All the transportation needs and everything. So $17 million for a major reform proposal, I don't know that that's significant, to be frank with you.
In October, when the governor first advanced what he called a blueprint, it included a 3-tiered system for teacher pay and some significant proposals, which he has now taken off the table. Representative Upmeyer, he's calling for the appointment of a task force to study this issue, yet another task force. Do you think at some point there will be changes in the way teachers are paid and how they advance professionally?
Oh, I think there likely will be. The governor took it off the table this year, and we've got a lot of opportunity to work on very significant pieces of revitalization of the education system in Iowa. So if he would prefer to do that next year, we'll do that next year and focus on the rest of the education reform this year.
But Representative McCarthy, by taking it off the table when there seemed to be a little bit of momentum building for an education reform package, has he effectively killed this idea down the road because it's not going to be dealt with this year?
I think they're finding that the problems or the issue is much more complex than just picking 4 tiers. And I'll just tell a very brief story. But when I went to junior high back in the 1970s, it was kind of a suburb within the city, new construction area. And I had a teacher, best teacher I ever had my entire life. Miss Koslack was her name, my science teacher. After almost 4 decades of teaching, she just retired this last summer. When I went back to the school for the kind of retirement end of year celebration, I think that this is approximately right. About 75% of the students now are on free and reduced lunches. A great many English as a second language. I would bet you, if you, as an aggregate, tested her students over the last 30 years, there would probably be a decline in the average test score, given the changing demographics at the school, the challenges that they face.
Right.
She's the best teacher I ever had. So how do you pay her, and how do you test? We want teachers like her in schools like that. It's much more complex.
Ms. Upmeyer, go ahead.
Well, Ms. What is the problem that can be resolved here? You sort of have a divide with a very powerful teachers union that resists changes that would affect advancement based on seniority. This proposal that the governor is advancing this week would call for yearly evaluation of teachers. How do you bridge that divide that exists and actually make some changes in regards to the teaching profession?
You know, I always find it puzzling that we are resistant to judging teachers and evaluating teachers on anything other than test scores, because obviously I'm a nurse, okay, and I think there's a lot of similarities between nurses and teachers. And I'm not judged on how many of my patients live or die. If all of my patients died, they perhaps would call it into question. But I think there's a great way to evaluate teachers on other things than only test scores. Certainly that's a component. But Representative McCarthy points out that there are other factors that go in. There absolutely are. So I think we can absolutely move away from a pure seniority system to a merit system without tying it directly to test scores entirely.
You hit upon, Representative McCarthy, one of the concerns that teachers raised, in that if you're a good teacher, stay in the classroom and teach the kids. Whereas this proposal that Governor Branstad and his staff had advanced called for those people to be mentors and be counseling other teachers in how to teach. How do you, I guess, resolve all of those complex issues at one time in the next year?
So maybe the task force is a good idea to study it a little bit more. I don't see a big blockade from teachers associations, and there's room for compromise here. Teachers want to be better teachers. Teachers like collaboration, they like partnership, and some of the proposals call for mentoring teachers, so I think there's some real opportunity to improve the way we deliver our education in this state.
Ms. Upmeyer, just as evaluating teachers is being moved down the road by studying it, Gas tax is something that's been studied, and this past week there was legislation floated, and I guess is going to be introduced to raise the gas tax, even though the governor said, no, not this year. You control pretty much what comes up in the House of Representatives because of your sizable majority there. Will you debate the gas tax?
Well, the governor's leading on this. Excuse me. The governor's leading on this, and the first thing he found out when he traveled the state was that Iowans want us to go back and look for efficiencies and make sure that every tax dollar is being used wisely. That's what the governor's asked the department to do and asked us to do, and that's what we'll do first. He has, said that's the way he wants to approach it. Senator Gronstal has said no, so I guess anything that the House might do would be premature at this point.
And Ms. McCarthy, how do you feel about that? Would you like to see an increase in the gas tax debated?
Nobody wants to raise taxes. I haven't met a legislator that wants to raise taxes. We did caucus on this issue when we believe that infrastructure, roads and bridges is vital, both for public safety and for economic development purposes, and we have a shortfall, and it's real and it's significant. Our intention would be as follows. Because the gas tax has been off the table for so many years, we've needed to put funding in our roads. We've been ramping up registration fees and license renewal fees and trailer fees, and more Iowans are disproportionately paying for the burdens of maintaining our roads. If we were to enter into something, it would have to be 50-50 bipartisan, but it would be to try to reduce as a percentage what Iowans are paying on our roads, these ramping up of these registration fees and license fees. And so I'd have a disagreement with the proposal that was thrown out the other day, which called for some more registration fees. So if you capture more money from the out-of-state driver, about 30% on average of the vehicles on our roads are coming from out of state, reduce some of the registration fees so that we are more equitable in that way.
Representative Upmeyer, last year, the legislature, the House in particular, spent a fair amount of time debating some pretty divisive social issues. They debated abortion extensively. They debated same-sex marriage extensively, passed a resolution calling for a vote on same-sex marriage. Are you going to debate those issues again this year, or is that settled? Have you voted, given your members a record on those things?
Those bills are over in the Senate, and I would encourage that any Iowans that want those bills debated need to let their senators know that they expect to have that done.
So you don't expect to bring it up in the House until...
They're in the Senate.
So Representative McCarthy, same to you. Do you expect to see a debate on those issues this coming year?
We hope not. Last session, frankly, was a disaster from our perspective. It was 1 week after another. At this time last year, we were getting ready to talk about impeachment proceedings of justices, and then we went on to the total elimination of our public preschool system, and then the end of collective bargaining, and then voter disenfranchisement. We didn't get down to doing the work of balancing the budget so far down into session, which is why we went 3 months longer. I will say that, and I've been saying this last week, I'm hopeful now that, because the tone's so much different, we're having bipartisan work now in education and mental health redesign and the other issues that we're working on. So at this point, I feel hopeful that we can have a more productive session, a timely session, and one that's bipartisan.
The allegation from legislative leaders is that you all have been working on this commercial property tax relief package and that you're close to an agreement. Representative Upmeyer, I'm sort of a cynic. I'll believe it when I see it. Is there really a deal imminent on commercial property tax, or is this going to be something that will not be resolved?
Well, I think there's a great deal of flexibility in what we can do on property taxes. There's 3 principles we've always held that our requirements as we do that. It needs to be broad-based across property taxes or classes. It needs to be very significant and consequential relief, and it should benefit everyone. And we had those conversations last year. Those conversations have continued during the interim, and it's certainly my hope that we can get that achieved this year.
Representative McCarthy, is it going to happen?
Things are looking better. 2 anecdotal stories, which I've been working on this issue for several years, and it's always collapsed politically under its own weight because some of these oxes are getting gored among the class of property taxpayers. But this year, the local governments are kind of recognizing now, particularly for small businesses, that taxing commercial property to 100% evaluation is not really competitive. And there's a willingness to be sympathetic to that. And then conversely, I was at the Iowa Chamber Alliance, and they put in their legislative proposals that we must recognize that we can't hurt local governments on police and fire. So that people have taken a step towards one another, which means there's a chance for compromise. It may not be everything everybody wants, but we can do something maybe modest but meaningful.
Mr. Upmeyer, can you assure farm landowners and homeowners that if you do property tax relief commercially, that they aren't going to get shifted onto the burden?
Well, that would be one of the criteria that my caucus would be looking at. And we absolutely believe cities and counties will be at the table. This will be, if we're able to achieve this goal, it'll be because we are able to work together. But our goal isn't to raise property taxes on one group of people to lower them on another. We believe that we can lower them on commercial property taxes, but that everyone can benefit.
Representative McCarthy, there's been a lot of talk by prison guards that funding for the prisons is so short that they're in danger, that there's not enough guards or too many prisoners per guard. Are you going to do anything about prison funding in this coming year?
I suspect, I don't call up the bills for debate anymore, but I suspect there'll be a proposal from the governor to call for a supplemental to hire more staff at the prisons. It would be something we would support.
Representative Upmeyer, same question to you. Will you do some extra spending on prisons to alleviate the concerns that guards have raised that they're putting themselves in danger because you've cut their staffing too much?
I'm sure that will be discussed, and the outcome will be, it will depend on if, for one thing, we do believe we've given the governor enough money to spend. So hopefully if he does propose additional spending, he's able to find it within the current budget. So we'll have that discussion.
One of the discussions legislators had last year that remains unresolved is whether utility customers in Iowa should be assessed an increase in their rates to finance construction of a nuclear power plant in Iowa. Representative Upmeyer, is that something that House Republicans want to have on the governor's desk by the end of this session?
Well, we passed the nuclear energy bill out of the House last year. There was discussion last year that the Senate was going to make some amendment to that and send it back to us. It never happened. Certainly, we think all forms of energy need to be considered in this state for our future. Energy needs are one of the big things that companies look at, job creators look at as they expand their businesses. And so that's something we want to be competitive. We want to have adequate energy, and we think this is a component of it. So we'll see if it comes back.
Representative McCarthy, you don't speak for Senate Democrats, you speak for House Democrats, but what does your crystal ball tell you on this particular issue?
My thought is that most people that are of reasonable mind that look at this issue of energy and ask the question that how do you deliver baseload power in the future? And most people have come to this, I think, conclusion. We cannot continue to have fossil fuels, coal, et cetera, be that baseload source forever. This is not sustainable. It's not sustainable for our environment. It's not sustainable. So nuclear seems to be the option that can deliver that baseload power. The issue of whether the ratepayers should bear the total burden or whether it should be the shareholders, that was very controversial last year. It's why AARP was very upset, and that's why we don't have the bill passed yet. It's my prediction that the bill will be amended to be more consumer friendly, and it'll come back to the House, and I predict we may have a bill.
Representative Upmeyer, let's talk a little bit about the state's budget. The Revenue Estimating Conference has said the state next year is going to collect about $6.2 billion. That's just a little over $200 million more than the current budget year. But spending already on the books would send state spending up by just over $300 million. You've got a budget problem.
Well, we always point out that we think we could have budget problems, and that's why we've been very judicious about the budgets that we've brought forward. While some people talk about surpluses, we point out that we have issues that we need to make sure that we've got enough revenue available to us to meet the needs of Iowans that we have committed. So we are spending less than we take in, and the budget projections, I think, are going to be adequate for us to do what we need to do.
Representative McCarthy, what areas, if you have to cut back, are Democrats willing to look at?
Well, first of all, I just say in response to your question, this kind of ties together. I think there is going to be a challenge to balance the budget this year. I think the Republicans in the House and us will be working in a bipartisan way. We'll try to make sure we get it done. But let me just tell you globally, you're right. The December REC came in, $250 million additional dollars. The Medicaid estimating conference, for lack of a better phrase, are recommending $100 million additional because we have almost 37,000 more enrollees within the last year, and there's purse string issues with the federal government. $100 million more additional. Allowable growth, which we have to fund, is $75 million additional. Okay, the takeover of our mental health system, at a minimum, is $47 million. At a minimum, additional dollars. We're already well over $200 million right there. $25 million for the education proposal. We're above the money that the RECs are. I think we continue. We led the effort. We had bipartisan help, but we led the effort just 3 years ago of government reorganization.
Right.
And we did that to the tune of $250 million. So we are willing, and we have a track record in that regard.
But you haven't addressed the real question, which is you're going to have more spending on the books than you have money coming in the door. What areas are you willing to look at to cut back?
Well, again, we did that 3 years ago. We're also, tax credits would be something that we'd be willing to look at and have. We've got an interim committee that's been meeting for about 2 years, formally and informally, that's looking at these issues. We address some of them, put caps on others. All that adds up from the fiscal bureau is how you score the budget.
Ms. Upmeyer, so like we're talking about money, you don't do appropriations until generally along about April. But the regents are submitting budget requests, and they have set tuition based on getting what they want from the legislature. Should students be nervous that you're not going to be able to appropriate what the regents want and tuition might go up?
Well, I think the budget has to be looked at as a whole picture. Representative McCarthy just laid out a whole list of areas where he's making assumptions that we're going to increase certain amounts. I think some of those things may obviously are needs that will be increased. Other places we will cut back. Remember
Should students
that
be
we've done,
nervous?
Well, I guess that's up to the Board of Regents. But we will do what we need to do for the Board of Regents based on the evidence they put before us about their needs. And we will ask hard questions, and I'm sure they'll give us answers. But in the end, we've got 85% of the budget, and we've got 15% of the budget to work on yet, and that's what we'll focus on.
Okay.
Doves were a bit more nervous flying over Iowa this past fall because you guys legalized a dove hunting season. But one of the unresolved issues is whether hunters who are shooting at those birds should use lead-based shot or what they call non-toxic shot. Representative Upmeyer, do you think the Iowa House will take up a dove hunting bill, or do you not want to open up that can of worms again?
Well, actually, Kay, I believe that would be a rule nullification action, and so we'll see what happens. I think the Senate's interested in doing that, and perhaps there are members of the House interested as well.
Representative McCarthy, it's an election year. It's a short session. There's some pressure to shorten the session up even more. Tell me what this legislature is going to do that the average Iowan will feel.
I think the three big issues that we've been working on in a bipartisan way, they'll notice some changes to our education system, which hopefully over time improve our educational standards. I think we'll have improvement to our mental health delivery system, which is very important. Right now it's 99 hodgepodge situations, moving to maybe 14 or 15 clusters, better delivery, more efficient. And I think we'll have some property tax relief. Our hope as Democrats is that that's targeted more towards Main Street than Wall Street. Not trying to be class warfare, it's just, but I think Walmart's doing okay. And if we do that and balance the budget, I think we'll be proud of the session.
Representative Upmeyer, same question to you. Look at the big picture. What are Iowans going to be influenced, affected by what happens this session?
Well, we know that Iowans want to focus on jobs and the economy, and so we're going to focus on jobs throughout the session in every bill we do. And, we know that government doesn't create those jobs, that the private sector does. And so you won't see a stimulus bill or an iJobs bill or anything like that. But what you will see is a focus on creating a healthier regulatory environment in the state, which has to do with stability. People can, job creators can predict the regulatory environment they're going to be in. They can predict the tax environment they're going to be in. They can predict that the state's going to have a focused spending plan that lives within its means, and that will help with job creation. And then I agree with Representative McCarthy that we will work on the mental health bill. Obviously, we have to do that. We sunset the previous bill, so that will move forward. And I think we'll do some things with education and property taxes as well.
Representative McCarthy, Republicans currently hold a 20-seat advantage in the Iowa House of Representatives. Have you recruited the right kind of candidate to erase that 20-seat majority?
All politics is local, particularly in these House contests. So you're right. It's having a good candidate that matches their district locally. We have the best recruiting class I've ever seen, and it's getting better. In fact, we'll maybe announcing somebody within the next 24 to 48 hours, which will
you can go ahead and
be
do
on
that
par
right now.
be on par with the best that we have right now. We have county supervisors, we have mayors, we have former representatives and senators, community leaders.
You mean as
new candidates? I think right now we had Steve Scheffler and Doug Gross were on this program just a couple weeks ago, pretty conservative Republicans, and they were asked, is the House in play? And I found it fascinating. They said, well, what they're supposed to say, the Republicans will keep control, but we think they're going to lose 4 or 5 seats. I'm paraphrasing, but that's basically what they said. When they're saying that, it makes my job a lot easier because there's no question we're going to pick up seats. The key is how many. I think we have a shot to get back control.
Do you think they have a shot to get back control, Representative Upmeyer?
Well, actually, I was thinking how many we would grow the majority by, so I guess we have a little different opinion about that. But I think the one thing that we've seen absolutely is at times like this when there are big issues facing the country and when there is unrest and a lot of energy out there, we see that energy reflected in people in the communities, people engaging and stepping up and wanting to participate, wanting to run for office with a great deal of energy and enthusiasm and volunteers. And I think it's just fabulous to have that kind of opportunity.
Republicans just had a fairly intense and active caucus campaign. How much has that helped you by energizing the party's base?
Well, I think it does engage people. I think anytime you have people participating in the very grassroots kind of citizenship, really, that we have in Iowa, it really does engage people, and it creates a great deal of excitement.
Well, we're happy to have engaged you here today, and I'm sorry to dampen the energy, but we're out of time. Thanks so much for being with us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We're inviting you to tune in Tuesday for a special IPTV political programming. Governor Branstad's Condition of the State Address will be seen live Tuesday morning at 10 on IPTV World. And then that night, we'll rebroadcast the entire speech with reporter analysis included at 7. That'll be on statewide Iowa Public Television that night. That's all on Tuesday, 10 in the morning and 7 that night. And we'll be back with another edition of Iowa Press next weekend, but a very important time change there. 7:30 on Friday night, still our regular time slot, but on Sunday, Iowa Press is moving to noon, making way for additional public affairs programming. And so we hope that you'll join us at the new time, Sunday at noon. I'm Dean Board. Thanks for joining us today.
Archive editions of Iowa Press can be accessed on the World Wide Web. Audio and video streaming is available, as are transcripts, at www.iptv.org.
Funding for Iowa Press was provided by Friends, the Iowa Public Television Foundation, the Iowa Gaming Association, on behalf of 18 commercial casino members who employ over 9,200 people with an annual payroll of more than $276 million and who generated nearly $1 billion for Iowa's economy in 2011.
Iowa Bankers Association. Iowa banks provide financial services to meet the needs of families, farms, and businesses. More information is available online at myiowabank.com. Iowa Banks, your future, our focus.
The Associated General Contractors of Iowa, the public's partner in building Iowa's highway, bridge, and municipal utility infrastructure. Iowa Community Foundations, an initiative of the Iowa Council of Foundations, connecting donors to the causes and communities they care about. For good, for Iowa, forever. Details at iowacommunityfoundations.org.
The Rotary Clubs of Iowa and Rotary International.
In 1985, Rotary International committed to a goal of ending polio worldwide. Very soon now, after immunizing over 2 billion children, the goal will be achieved. Rotary, humanity in motion.